Hello and welcome to another edition of the Stench of Truth. In this one I'm going to be doing the Stench of the Union address in answer to Obama's ridiculous nonsense. Let's have a look at some of the issues that he talked about. First of all was raising the minimum wage to $10.10 an hour for federal private contractors who engage in federal contract work. Now, on first glance, you might think, hey, that's a good idea because Lord knows the minimum wage is nowhere near where it should be. But $10.10 an hour is too little and too late. And, of course, there is going to be no transfer to the private sector as the president wants you to believe, because the private sector, that is, are the ones that control the political machinery within this country. And if there is any push to do that, then I'm sure there will be more rancor and divisive politics within Washington, D.C. in order to prevent it. But some things you need to look about when you look at the minimum wage is the fact that we've not seen any increases in minimum wage. If you peg it to inflation, it should be higher than $10.10 an hour. If you peg it to productivity, it should be much higher. It should be over $15 an hour at the very least. Now, one of the arguments that you hear from business and from radical asshole jackasses in the Tea Party and other extremist organizations within the government, and of course from the CEOs of big corporations, is that raising the minimum wage would be too much of a burden on their business policies, and that it would increase the amount of costs for goods and everything else that are associated with their business operation. And you might be inclined to give some credence to those arguments. However, one must have to ask the obvious question. If you look at how wages have gone since the 1970s, whenever pretty much the labor movement within this country was destroyed, and it is headed on a downhill trajectory ever since. Since the 70s through to practically today, we have seen productivity gains within the workforce, average productivity increases of the average American worker of 85%, while the average American worker has seen their wages increase 6%. Now, when you compare that to CEOs and executives, their pay has increased hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of fucking percent. Okay, so where is the equality there? Now, the next thing you have to say is, if we had a system that addressed these issues as they developed, in other words, if you had a cost of living increase in the minimum wage and in the wages of every other worker within our economy, gradually over time, instead of stifling and tamping down and refusing and breaking contracts and everything else that you can fucking possibly do to jam the workforce down in this country to keep their wages from going above a 6% increase in, 35 fucking years? Come on. 6% average pay raise in 35 to 40 fucking years. Now, had you gradually increased the wages as is a normal operation procedure over time, there would not be a massive jump right now. You would not be going from 7 whatever it is an hour to, $10.10, or where I think it should be around $20 or $22 an hour. So that truly the minimum wage would get you at least to the very bottom rung of the non-poverty fucking income level. How's that? How's that for a fucking start? How's that? Now, had this gone on, you would not be seeing a drastic increase. But because we have been fucked and pillaged over the fucking years by the corporations in this country who have completely taken over the government. Now we're faced with a point where if we want to see this increase, we're going to have to see a massive fucking increase. Now, will that mean that things are going to be more expensive, or, whatever the associated costs go along with that? Well, that all depends on how it is handled and how regulation addresses it. But the point stands. If you don't pay a bill that you should pay over a period of time, eventually the amount you owe is going to be a hell of a lot higher than it was at the fucking beginning. Nobody seems to understand this. You don't give anybody a raise for 40 fucking years, all of a sudden the bill fucking comes due because everybody in this fucking country is sick to death of working for shit. So CEOs can line their fucking velvet goddamn pockets with every fucking rich goddamn thing that they could get their fucking hands on, while their workers struggle to fucking survive, or even to have a job to fucking begin with. So, anybody who wants to defend corporations and businesses against a massive minimum wage increase and across the board wage increases for everybody else within the workforce, I say fuck you, you fucking fuckers. Because it's been delayed for 40 fucking years. Now your bill has come due, so start coughing it up. I say $20 fucking an hour as a minimum wage. And that means everybody else gets a raise too. It's about fucking time. There is no fucking defense. So thank you, Obama, for another piece of shit garbage idea. You want to make some kind of move? Make a real move. Make that minimum wage $20 fucking an hour. You know what? You got a pen. You got a phone. Here's what you do with your pen. You write an executive order nationalizing the Federal fucking Reserve. Okay? If you don't want to do that, use your goddamn phone to call up the Wall Street skank, Janet Yellen, and tell her to open up a credit facility within the Federal Reserve and put out offers to buy state and municipal bonds for 0% interest, as Webster Tarpley has talked about before, to create credit within this country to drive infrastructure. Local fucking jobs to fix your local municipalities, your local water supplies, your local sewage treatment plants, your roads, your schools, everything else that needs to be rebuilt. The electrical system within this country, everything is falling apart here. But you know what? You're not going to do that. You're going to sign some stupid nonsense fucking executive order that doesn't really do anything except distract from the fact that you're still fucking us at every fucking possibility. So, since you're not going to do that, take your fucking pen and your fucking phone and jam them up your ass. How's that, President Obama? Oh, let's talk about the MyRA. Now, this is a very clever ploy on the part of Obama. See, instead of outright coming out like George Bush did and suggesting that we have private savings accounts in order to do away with Social Security, okay, Obama is not saying get rid of Social Security, although that's what he wants to do. Okay, he's not saying it. You see, he's not linking the two. He's just saying, oh, this is an additional facility for you to have a retirement account. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Okay, I'm going to tell you exactly what this is. This is another fucking giveaway to goddamn banks. As soon as you open up an IRA account with this stupid MyRA and you start investing, do you know what's going to happen? The same thing that happened to every other 401 fucking K in this motherfucking country. It's going to be ripped off and fucking destroyed and guzzled down the throat of greedy motherfucking banks as they mismanage your fucking accounts and commit massive fucking fraud on you. That's all it is. It's another way for Wall Street to take money out of your fucking pocket while they pay nothing. If you want to do something to address the retirement crisis, why don't you expand Social Security? Why don't you give bigger benefits? And in order to pay for it, hey, how about this, motherfucker? Instead of shoveling fucking giant pallets of fucking cash into the greedy fucking whores on Wall Street, why don't you fucking tax them on their goddamn transactions? And you will have massive amounts of money until either they run out or they quit their fucking rape and pillage of the goddamn economy. And you can fund everything. But that ain't gonna happen. So, my RA, another fucking giveaway to the goddamn motherfucking banks and Wall Street that caused the fucking collapse that led us here in the first place. Oh, and of course, he wants to have, here's his issue for unemployment. Here. On unemployment. The Obama administration will convene a group of CEOs, the ones that have gotten the 300, 500, 1,000% increases in their fucking salaries while they fucking shit on their goddamn workers, okay? And other leaders, okay? To talk about the best ways to incorporate unemployed Americans back into the workforce. Oh, let's go talk to business about how we can put people back to work. Let's go talk to multi-fucking millionaires and billionaires who have fucking wringed their fucking companies dry of any benefit to their labor force while they ride around on their 2 or 3 fucking Learjets to their 10 or 11 fucking houses around the fucking country. Fuck you! These are the last fucking people you need to talk about putting people back to work, you fucking piece of shit! So fuck that as well. Let's see. Oh, let's talk about the environment, eh? How about the environment, He wants to expand fracking in this country and expand the extraction of natural resources within this country. Now, I'm not against that on principle, okay? What I am against is I'm against fracking. And I'm against anything that causes environmental damage because right now the EPA and every other governmental agency is completely captured and controlled by the corporate groups which would fall under their purview. Therefore, they write the laws, they write the rules, they write the regulations. So, that's why you have fracking going on all over this fucking country, poisoning and polluting fucking people's water, turning it into a flammable fucking gaseous emission out of their goddamn taps that you can light on fire while they deny anything that is fucking going on. And he wants to expand this so now we can have massive fucking pollution and nobody can have fucking fresh drinking water. Thank you, but no thanks, you fucking piece of shit. Oh, let's see. Oh, how about this? He wants to have more power as the executive to fast-track trade policies. In other words, this is a way for him to say, there seems to be some opposition to the latest free trade agreement, that is the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and in order to get around the people's opposition and congressional questions that may linger from some people who have some semblance of a fucking conscience or care in their fucking brains left in Congress, might be opposed to, like the fact that national laws are now put into a court system whenever a corporation decides that you are engaging in unfair labor or unfair trade practices. In other words, corporations can sue federal governments who have laws on the books that go against their profit-making objectives. Do you understand that? The TPP will give corporations rights that they have never seen before. And this will be the enaction of the global corporate hegemony, which is what USA Incorporated is pushing for, with its military adventurism, with its imperialism, with everything else. It's about putting in a corporate oligarchy around the fucking world. Corporations and banks running everything. And the TPP is the latest example of this. So what is he proposing? He wants more power to enact these policies so that he can do it even though there's massive opposition everywhere and people do not want it. So fuck you again, you fucking piece of shit. Same old shit, different fucking day. Okay, so let's have a look and see what else we have left here. Let's see what else we got here. Yeah. Well, all I can say is that the big fucking issue that was completely ignored is the fact that income inequality in this fucking country is the worst in history. It's the worst of any country in history that we have ever fucking recorded, okay? And he did absolutely nothing to address this. He did absolutely nothing to address the fact that there are oligarchical and monopolistic interests within this country and around the world which drive and control policy. And he will do nothing to address that at all. He will do nothing to address anything of any substance. The only thing that he ever does is propose little piddling ideas that, on the surface, seem to address the very basics of what the issue is, but in reality turn out to be big fat fucking giveaways to fucking private interests. That's all it is. That's all it ever is. And that's all it ever will be. So have fun drinking it up with your fucking CEOs, fucking Obama and Biden, when you have your big CEO meeting about putting people back to work in this country. Okay, without addressing the very fundamental issues that are apparent and necessary and needed right fucking now. Wall Street tax. Number one. The fucking cause of the fucking catastrophe in 2008 was not people who couldn't afford houses. No, it was not that. It was not even your local bank who may have fudged the fucking numbers, okay, to put a mortgage in for someone who maybe couldn't afford it. No. The real fucking cause was Wall Street bundling this shit up together in toxic fucking assets that you can't even fucking explain without 45 fucking minutes of 10 fucking economists and 30 fucking lawyers looking over the goddamn fucking document, whatever it happens to be. With shit fucking mortgages and CDOs and all this other fucking derivative goddamn nonsense. Wall Street caused the fucking collapse. And you know what? These fuckers don't pay a goddamn cent. They fucking buy and sell all the fucking time. Probably 24 hours a fucking day with their fucking computerized trading system. Then they pay nothing. They don't pay a fucking cent for anything. Finance capital is the controlling influence in this country and no one wants to fucking touch it. It's about time it's fucking touched. So if you want to do something to address anything in this goddamn country, you gotta make the fuckers who caused the goddamn problem to start fucking paying for it. Do you understand? And until you start talking about that, you better shut your big fucking trap, you useless piece of shit on a fucking podium. President fucking shitbag Obama. You don't want to address the fucking cause of the fucking issue, then shut your fucking mouth. And don't throw out a fucking penny here at $10.10 an hour minimum wage increase for federal contractors. You don't even use your fucking presidential power to try to force issues. You don't talk to unions, you don't talk to workers, you don't do anything except kowtow and fucking bow your fucking head to corporate goddamn leaders every time you have a fucking chance. And if there's any banker on Wall Street or anywhere in a finance company, anywhere, that wants to give it to you up the ass, you're quick to bend over for them. So don't talk about you care about anybody in the middle class or the poor or poverty in this fucking country, because you don't. Nobody does in Washington, D.C. So fuck you, and double fuck you. Do you understand what all this is? It's the same fucking games that happen all the fucking time. This country is in a shithole. It's fucking mired in garbage. There is no fucking jobs anywhere. CEOs are rampaging and running this fucking country into the goddamn ground. They're shitting on, they're pushing down, and they're crushing the labor force in this country. Now, you want to talk about some other issues that might be of importance? Instead of having a meeting with fucking CEOs about how to put Americans back to work, how about you pass some fucking laws or executive orders or something that actually do something good, instead of doing all this fucking bullshit with NSA and spying and bullshit and all this other crap that you're doing secretly and behind the fucking scenes that do nothing except make things more miserable for people in this fucking country. Huh? Why don't you do something and say, how about this? Oh, let's look at GE, like I mentioned last time. Who sends almost all of their operations overseas while their CEO is on the Jobs fucking Council for the goddamn president? Fuck you, you fucking asshole. You want to take, how about this? How about this, motherfuckers? You want to take your fucking operations overseas? Be my fucking guest. But I'll tell you what, motherfucker. If I was goddamn president, I would seize every fucking asset you have in this motherfucking country, and I would rape it of everything that you have gained from this fucking system. And if that means I gotta take every fucking piece of thing that you fucking own before you try to outsource, then that's what I'm fucking doing. Because I'm gonna take back every fucking year of taxes you did not pay and every other benefit that you got from the fucking government on the backs of the people of this fucking country before you take one fucking job overseas. You want to address fucking jobs in this country? How about you stop the goddamn bleed? And that means fucking kill the TPP. Kill it dead in the fucking water. Murder it! And you try to take one job overseas, your country is seized. Your country is seized. And the president your company is fucking seized. Your assets are fucking frozen. You are not permitted to do anything until we do an accounting. We figure out how many years you paid zero or negative taxes. We take all of that. All of those tens, 20s, 50 billions of dollars. We take all of that back. And if that leaves you fucking broke, too fucking bad, you fucking shitbag corporation. And as far as a Wall Street transaction tax goes, fuck you guys. I don't want to hear a goddamn argument about nothing when it comes to any kind of rationale that would oppose putting a transaction tax on Wall Street. Because these fuckers need to be reined in. You can see exactly what's going on here. The Wall Street bubble continues. Even though they're announcing gradual tapering, which is not going to happen, of federal bond buying, they'll just put it under the table so you can't see it. Okay, they're making it seem like they're tapering this back. We're going to have a little bit of a downshift in the Dow. You know, the stock market's going to take a couple hits here and there. Just smoke and mirrors while they continue the same policies under the fucking table. That's another reason why you need to nationalize the fucking Federal Reserve. You need to put a stop to that bullshit. You need to start putting their credit creation facility to the use of the American fucking people, not the goddamn fucking fraudsters and thieves and Wall Street and the banks. Simple as that. There are issues that can be done. There are things that you can do. Okay, I'm no fan of executive orders, but if you had a real president, and Obama is not a real president, he's a puppet. He's a puppet of Wall Street. He's a puppet of finance capital. Just like everybody in Congress, except for maybe a few individuals who timidly fight against it at best. Okay? They're all on the same page. All of them. They do not give a shit about you. They never will give a shit about you until you make them give a shit about you. And the only way you can make them give a shit about you is to make your fucking voice heard and tell these motherfuckers you're tired of being beaten. You're tired of being pushed down. And most of all, you are sick and fucking tired of the people who cause the fucking problems continuing to call the fucking shots and not be held accountable with throwing people in fucking jail and getting the money back that has been raped out of this fucking country and out of all of our fucking pockets. So if you want to do something, instead of jamming that pen and phone up your fucking ass, Obama, which is about the only place where it's ever going to do any good, because nothing you sign with it's going to mean anything. If there were a real president, why don't you get your phone and call up the Justice Department and say, let's go after the fucking thieving banks and put these motherfuckers in jail, huh? How about that? Nope, not going to happen. Not going to happen. So, at the end of the day, same old shit. Different fucking year. Throw out a couple pennies. Throw out a couple distractions over here. Make it seem like I'm doing something. La-di-da-di-da. While I continue to brutally sodomize you. Thank you, you piece of shit Obama, for another piece of shit fucking address to the piece of shit fucking Congress, the do-nothing jackasses and assholes, rapists and fucking thieves. Thank you for fucking nothing. Oh, and enjoy your poisoned water. And hey, you know, one benefit of the flammable drinking water is maybe you can heat your house because you won't be able to afford your gas bill because you're out of work. But you wait and see, when them CEOs get together, they're going to come up with a great old plan, which will involve giving CEOs and companies massive fucking money from the federal fucking government so that they'll magically create jobs, which there will be no accountability for. There will be no reciprocity. There will be no, requirement that any jobs actually be created. Oh yeah, the corporate tax rate. Yeah, they're going to lower that so that companies that don't pay 35% now can then not pay the 23% that they want to put corporate taxes at. And that's going to be coming real soon, folks. So, yeah, we need to really get the burden off the corporations because Lord knows, 35% that none of them pay now, and most of the biggest companies pay negative federal income taxes. So we need to lower that. You understand how that works? Do you see how the economics works? It makes perfect sense. So that'll fix everything. That'll fix everything. And of course, what they'll probably do is have some kind of tax amnesty thing so that corporations who are holding billions and hundreds of billions and trillions of dollars overseas in offshore bank accounts that can't be seen and can't be taxed, they'll probably have some kind of deal where they'll say, we'll only charge you a couple percentage tax if you bring that back into the country, just so they can put it in their own personal bank accounts and have access to it. Not so they can produce anything in this country, not so that they can increase jobs, not so they can do anything to benefit this fucking country, just so they can enrich themselves. Just as a convenience to the ultra-rich and the elite. The last time they did this, that's exactly what they did. And you watch, that's coming too. Because we've not been sodomized enough, apparently. And people in this country are still too stupid and too retarded and too fucking mentally slow to figure out that this fucking shitbag in the White House is exactly this fucking same as the fucking shitbag Ted Cruz and the fucking asshat Rand Paul and all these other fucking gas bag asshole shitbrain motherfucking cocksuckers. Who all they want to do is line their pockets with campaign donations, fucking free gifts, while they shit on you and give away every fucking benefit that you have and try to dissolve anything that was ever done good to try to prevent the total rape and pillage of people in this fucking country. That is my response to the stench of the fucking Union 2014. Thank you, President Shitface Motherfucking Obama, for your bullshit fucking round around she goes. Where she stops, nobody knows, except for the fact that you're going to be bent over and fucked some more in the future. Yeah, give them more authority to pass trade agreements that give corporations the power to overturn national sovereignty on the basis of profits. Yeah, good idea. All of it, really good idea. To further that fucking ravaging that has been done on this country. And to further enmesh us in poverty and despair. Thank you. Thank you. You've really done a great job. I'm so looking forward to the rest of your presidency, you fucking asshole. We'll see just how bad it can fucking get. Thank you. Good day.